3 trillion is his subsidy. So how can you put subsidy of 3 trillion into the Nigerian economy, and it's the power sector, and it's just consumption? It's not producing anything. The 3 trillion is just going to go 1 year, it's gone. So how can you do that?
As a commercial entity, if I'm not paid for my past services, do you expect me to continue to supply? This is not possible. It is against the force of nature. Every business must follow the natural commercial flow of production, of transportation, of delivery, and of receiving payment, and of settling all the operators in the sector. If this does not exist, the life of that sector will be cut short. And in no time, it will be fully granted. So the liquidity is very key. And the payment of outstanding debt to the generating companies, to the gas supply companies, is very key for them to be able to support us as a sector to ramp up output. And we are talking about infrastructural deficit across all segments of the power.
If electricity is not in any domain of influence in your budgetary provision, don't come and tell us that you want power. You don't want power. It's just that simple. So some of these very small nuances and nitty-gritty are issues we all shy over. In a being 1,320 megawatts power plant, we were to double it in 5 years. And by God's grace, and I repeat, God's grace, we have the resources to do so. But hello, we've put in money already. We've not recovered that investment. We are being held for power generated and consumed when electricity was, the exchange rate was 198, and then somebody is still advocating and pushing that Mr. Adesina do more. No, I'm not Professor Pella. I'm not going to do magic. It's not going to happen. And one of the things I want to appeal and beg the leadership of Nigeria for is this. Let's support the Professor Batinagis of this world. Let's support the Koladitionos of this world. Let's support the Dere Otubus of this world. Don't kill our own just because of the fact that you want to be celebrated publicly. Americans don't chew Americans. They embrace them. They lift them. Even where there are issues and weaknesses apart from fraud. If there is fraud, if people are stealing money, but if there are systemic issues, making companies to die, my goodness, the role of government is to intervene and ensure that businesses don't die. As we speak today, we're talking of 220 million. It's going to be 350 million very soon. And it's going to be worse off. I was engaging Professor Bat just a few minutes ago. Our children don't want to come back home. Have we wondered the implication of that to the tomorrow of Nigeria? They're developing other nations. They're not interested in coming back. And there are many issues that we're meant to be discussing and dealing with frontally. But we're not. We're talking about Band-Aid. What about bandits? You understand? Until we step backward and ask ourselves critical questions, we're not likely to move this needle. At every point in time in the story of Nigeria, check why are we in this mess. Let me pontificate and say it openly. It's going to be increasingly difficult, if not impossible, for the Electricity Act to work optimally. Why? Because liquidity is the issue. States are still coming to the federal government every month for handouts. Is that the money they are going to use to build electricity infrastructure? I think we must really be very, very careful, because we are likely to enter into a bigger mess than we are currently in. I'll tell you something that is going to happen. I'm not Nostradamus, but I will tell you honestly and sincerely, most of these states will not be able to do what is needful. Everybody will be looking at the served that they want to take off from the discos to be privately served by interest different from what is currently obtainable, whilst the unserved will never be served. The underserved are underserved primarily because of the fact that you have energy theft and lack of infrastructure. Are these new companies going to build the infrastructure? The right of way we currently have, how are we going to now cohabit with new infrastructure we are expecting to be built by the new companies that are expected? And by the way, when power is new, it is expensive. It's not cheap. The investor will want to recover investment sooner than later. So until we all just take a step backward, which was what I believe and hope this legislative session is going to cater to, is can we truly cut and dice this problem the way it is in all sincerity without emotion? When emotion enters into any argument, it beclouds judgment. If you don't like Kolawole Adesina, trust me 100%, the mindset is already negative. There's nothing you will say that will enhance my business. Because you just look at me and say, why him? Who does he think he is? So if we don't start with the mindset that is right, we're not likely to solve this problem. If we're not taking action, and trust me, action is what is needed here, more than any other thing. We talk a lot in Nigeria. We've been talking for how many years? I've been part of this for how many years? And my goodness, my kids are now asking me, if we're going to come back to Nigeria, it's because of the fact that you've been able to rectify the problems that are there today. If you are going to borrow money into the future, to destroy our own future, we're not coming. We prefer to be taking Uber in foreign land than to come to Nigeria and face problems we did not create. There are several issues, but these issues are simple. They're not so difficult. The mindset must change. The legislature, with due respect, Mr. Speaker, when the executive brings budgets to you, please, sir, first ask for power provision. How much? If it's not number one or number two, because I give defense number one, because if the nation is not secured, there can't be electricity. So after defense is power, then any other thing will follow. If we start to see incremental progress in investment, you will see the result. In Ikeja Disco, people celebrate us, some vilify us, no problem. One of the things we did was that we created a model. We said, let's even experiment with this idea of service-based tariff. And we said, we're going to charge them more. The people in Magodo and Ikeja GRA and Ogudu said, we're ready. Relatively, they get stable power supply. And thankfully, the regulators saw it and said, let's generalize it. That's how we found ourselves where we are today. You can't boil the ocean. If you say you want to put electricity infrastructure across Nigeria, it's not going to happen overnight. But you do it step by step. The first advocacy, and with due respect to residential customers that are in this room, I know some of them are consumers because they don't pay, but for those who pay, is that let's prioritize industries first. Now let's have a coherent plan that will take us back to the 60s and the 70s when we had industrial areas. Ogba industrial zone is no more an industrial area. It's now more of commercial, it's now more of residential and religious. So you must have areas where you give priority supply to. Let's start with them. If the industries are working, employment is created. If the industries are working, GDP is growing. If the industries are working, all of us ultimately will benefit from those industries. Tax will be earned and the rest of them. Let's start with industries. Let's now say, every evening in residential areas, people's homes must be electrified. Industrial activity typically takes place during the day, so at night, can we shift power to residential areas? And over time, graduated approach will begin to see how electricity can truly become accessible to all. Can we experiment with that? If we're doing metering, I've said, and I know I've been criticized many times as well, but amongst the infrastructure I need to electrify homes, industries and commerce, with due respect, metering is not number one. Why? Metering is just simply put an instrument of trust. In terms of energy you've received, as against the money you are being asked to pay. Today, the general view is, okay, they are stealing money, they are doing that. If I give you meter and there is no power on the line, is the meter useful? The meter is not going to give you light. So I want us to sequence our investment along the lines of value add. The value add, which one gives us the highest value? Today we're following the bus route because that's what everybody is talking about. Because everybody is talking about it, we are putting money into it. And I love what the Honorable Minister of Power said. It's not the place that people want to see themselves. It's where they should be. Because if you follow the bus route, you will end up in the busway, and of course there's nothing unusual there. Nigerians are agents of innovation and transformation. Nigerians are very, very diligent. We're hardworking people. We're resilient people. We're agile. We're strong. We have grit. We have tenacity. All that is required is communication, communication, communication. If you let Nigerians know that tomorrow you will not have light, there won't be any problem. But if you say tomorrow there will be light, please ensure that there is light and not darkness. Nigerians are tired of system collapse. Why? Because they don't hear of it anywhere else. And interestingly, one of the beauty of lack of power in Nigeria, it has made us become electricians, all of us. We now know feeders, we now know substation, we now know the transformers, even we now know ATC and C. And unfortunately, to my brother, Senator Baribe, may you not be able to calculate your power consumption per day, because it means you are at home for 20 hours. So rather, we prefer that an instrument is attached that can truly determine, yes, this is the quantum of energy received. And NEC has done incredibly well in that regard. In terms of protecting the customer, there has been not one agency, and I seriously say this with all due sense of responsibility, that has been hard on us as discos than NEC. They come every day to say, no, you didn't give so number of hours, so you have to do something within 7 days otherwise. And the minister is pushing it aggressively too. Why? Because government does not have money. 3 trillion is his subsidy. So how can you put subsidy of 3 trillion into the Nigerian economy, and it's the power sector, and it's just consumption? It's not producing anything. The 3 trillion is just going to go 1 year, it's gone. So how can you do that? And which is why they have cleverly started Band Hey. And let me tell you what they are doing.